Okay guys, now we are going to use a mask, and we're going to use a mask to improve on that VFX shot. So last time we used a crop, this time we're going to use a tool that will allow us to adjust one element in the top layer, and we will see that element but nothing else from the layer, and we'll get to see what is below it, which is going to be our plate. So we need to choose what our plate is going to be, and in this case it's going to be this clip here of Dan with his head in his hands. That is the bottom layer that we want to be as our primary visual. So I've already marked the in and the out points just to the usable bits of footage there. I don't want Dan looking at the camera at either end. So let's just take video only. We're going to drop that as our bottom base layer. If we just zoom out there, we can see Dan sat waiting. Now we want to check what are we going to have above that, and in this case it's another version of Dan, albeit creepy Dan, walking towards normal Dan. And at this point I've trimmed the video just to the point when I want the video to stop. So again, I'm going to take just the video only, and I'm going to drop it on top of our plate. Now if we just run them together at the moment, we obviously, one is completely covering the other. So what we want to do is isolate Dan here with a mask, which means that we will only see him from this video layer, and everything else from below should show through. So let's select the video that we want to do that to and come up to Effects Controls. And what we want to do is play with the opacity here. Now we could have a mask that is a perfect oval or a rectangle, but we actually want to be a bit more specific, so we're going to use the pen tool. First of all, I'm just going to zoom in on the thing I'm going to mask here to make it easier. I'm going to choose the pen tool, and I'm going to draw with as many dots as is necessary around the element that we want to maintain. Now you can be more specific when you do yours, but for the sake of time I'm going to just get that far. And as soon as I made the final connection, the mask has been implemented, and what we have now is this mask, but when I move it, it's just showing me almost like a window through to whatever is below, and we want it to be right over Dan like this. Now in every frame Dan is going to be walking, he's going to be moving, so we need that mask to move with him. So what we are going to do is we're going to line Dan up at the beginning of his action, and I'm just going to move this a little bit to accommodate. And you can see that frame by frame I can just move the mask as is necessary, but once we've got the playhead at the beginning here, I'm going to hit this button, and it's called the track selected. We want it to move the mask forward, and I'm going to hit that, and it's going to track the movement of what we currently have selected, and if something isn't too complex it will follow it all the way through to the end of that clip. There might be some tweaks we need to make, but as we can see, if we run this back now, the mask does a fairly good job of following Dan and his movements. It's not ideal. When we get to about here, you can see it's cutting off his head. So I could either, on a frame by frame basis, just come and tidy up the bits that I'm not happy with. In this case, what I'm actually going to do is use a tool over here. I'm going to expand the size of the mask, and you can see we can make it a bit bigger than it needs to be to cover all eventualities. And I'm going to also feather the mask. So here you can see this is how soft or harsh the outside edges. So I'm going to feather it to hide some of those inconsistencies. And then finally, because we want Dan to look a little bit spooky, I'm going to change the opacity of the mask so that it shows a little bit of what's behind him. And now we have this effect. We have Dan walking, and it's done quite a good job of adding that consistency. I'm just going to use the pen tool on the timeline just to have Dan fade in, and I'm actually not going to have him fade out because it's going to cut to black like that. But he fades in as he starts trudging along. So I'm pretty happy with that. So for now, we're going to pause it there. We'll come back and show in a moment what else we can do now that we've made our mask.